Alright everybody, recently on the 6th of this month of August, the internet has turned 30 years old. I mean, we are very late to the party, but nobody really else has talked about this, so I think it's something we definitely should get out the way. It's crazy to think how far we have come since the early idea of the internet. Yeah, sure, people have differing opinions, and that today may not be the golden age of the internet. I feel the same way. This is definitely not the golden age of the internet, but it's still still crazy looking back and knowing that the internet just started out as a page slash document of what the internet was going to be. Anyways, joining me for this special occasion is the YouTuber called CarmenRider.
Hello again, I'm CarmenRider. You may remember me from that other collab I did with FPS about video game music. But today, we take a look back at the old days of yore on the internet. From brawl taunts to cancel culture, it's been a wild ride for sure.
Looking back on it, it takes me back to a time where everybody would tell me how revolutionary new computers were at the time, like Windows 95 and XP, and all those other operating systems, alike, may be unsupported, but were still very influential to the market of technology going forward. And I still remember the people telling me that on those operating systems for internet, you had to use a damn phone for it. You had to use a dial-up connection for internet. It was slow as hell, but it made the internet a reality to say the least. The process was funny to say the least. You had to get your phone connected and it would play a wacky noise that everybody had to deal with. And for messaging people on the internet, you had simple yet revolutionary software that just worked for the time. You had things like AOL Instant Messenger, MSN / Windows Live Messenger, Google Talk, MySpace, Skype, and probably upon many others that just worked. And Discord, Instagram, Twitter, and other restrictive sites that we bitch and moan about to this day wouldn't even come until years later, and it's just insane to think about.
The old days of YouTube. Back when you could post anything on the website as long as it wasn't porn. Growing up with this site is surely something. As you may know, back in the day, the most popular games at the time were FPSs. So given that fact, there were a bunch of channels made to play those games. Some good and some bad. One of the good ones was a channel called Good Griefing. Good Griefing was a channel dedicated to trolling on Xbox Live games, more specifically the Call of Duty series. One of the members, Crazy Filmmaker, was known for his series Get Humiliated, which was my favorite out of all of them. Basically, he goes into a gun game match and all he does is use the knife as he gets the best reactions out of people. They did other stuff such as impersonations of characters over the mic, but Get Humiliated eventually became its own series on the channel. Though, as I'm writing this, I took notice of the fact that a few of the original episodes were privated, so can someone tell the Lost Media Wiki about this?
Speaking of video games, I remember people talking to me about the days where Steam, the PC game marketplace, yeah, that software was so damn different back then. In fact, back then on Steam, you didn't even have your games via the internet and downloaded them. No, back then you had to use discs in your PC, and Steam was a way of getting updates and patches for those games over the years. And speaking of online gaming, back in the older days of gaming, you just had these deathmatch types of games like Doom and Quake, and they weren't even official multiplayer games, but of course, some brilliant and talented minds came onto the scene and modded that shit in. And you had people connecting to servers all across the world with the shitty dial-up connections. And the messaging software, as I said before, was the only way you could talk to the people you were playing with. And you best had better hope that nobody would pick up and use the phone when you were in a game. Otherwise, say goodbye to your 30 kill streak. And speaking of mods, because of the rise of the internet, sites like ModDB and many other modding sites that came onto the scene that contain very creative mods for games like Doom, Quake, Sonic, Mario, and among many other game franchises, that really changed up the game a lot and added in great and fun cooperative and competitive game modes that people would be constantly playing on a daily basis, and you would make so many friends in the process. And it's funny to think that games before that had multiplayer were having multiplayer, but originally in the form of LAN parties, meaning you had to be at the same location as the other person to play with them, and gave us great titles at the time like Halo 2 and Combat Evolved, which really grew the internet community at the time.
So when it comes to online gaming communities back in the day, nothing is more lucrative than false info. Nowadays it comes to unreleased info that becomes lied about, but back then even games you owned had their own fabricated stories. Now don't worry, I'm not going to talk about L is real, but I will discuss some other stuff. Not many people talk about this, but a relic of gaming back then was cheat sites. Yeah, remember when games actually wanted you to progress? Nowadays, games are artificially extended. However, often on these cheat sites, there would be cheats that were just flat out fake. As a kid, I often played a PS2 game called Naruto Ultimate Ninja. And being the way I was, I looked up some possible cheat codes for the game. And one of them was for a chibi mode, where all the characters were chibi styled. So, I decided to try it out. And of course it didn't work. Now, being an uncoordinated kid who couldn't even perform a Hadouken in Street Fighter, I figured I was just shit at the game and didn't do the button combinations right. Remember, this was before asset ripping was a thing, and Let's Plays were in its infancy. Looking back, however, I realized the site was full of shit. I probably should have recognized the red flag that was the fact that they listed special moves as cheat codes. You know, special moves that can be accessed through the pause menu. To this day, I never understood why they felt the need to fake cheats, but I have two theories. One is to get people to visit the page multiple times. Since smartphones weren't as common at the time, you couldn't just bring your phone and do the cheats while reading them on your device. You had to go to your computer, read the cheat, remember the cheat, do the cheat in game, and then you either do it or you don't, and if it doesn't work, naturally, you're gonna make sure you did it right. So you go back to the site again, and the cycle repeats, and thus generating more ad revenue from the ads on the page. Either that, or it's a copyright trap. Since a lot of these sites copied each other, and still do copy each other, chances are there's going to be a site that gets smart and catches them in the act of stealing. So they put fake cheats to prove that the other site is copying their lists. Which would be fine if it wasn't at the expense of me. Oh, trust me, this was more than a one-off occurrence. So that's my experience with false info about gaming. Back to you, FPS Gaming.
Video games on consoles back in the days were the shit. Halo 2, Halo 3, and Reach, and Call of Duty, and Gears of War, and so many other titles on the good old Xbox consoles. The consoles were back in those days, you could talk shit on the mic and not get reported or a communication ban for it. Back then, when online video games were about the gameplay and online interactivity and experience rather than microtransactions, wacky skins, skill-based matchmaking, unlockables, and battle passes, and as much monetization as possible, and as much free-to-play bullshit as possible. As well as the clans recruiting people back in the day. Halo 2 released in 2004 and changed online gaming on consoles forever. No longer would people be connecting via dial-up and phone calls anymore. No, you could just go on your Xbox and play Halo 2 with people, and my god was it great from its gameplay. All the funny little machinimas and montages and people back then actually used game chat to talk. Remember those days? And it was filled with all sorts of people, toxic and not toxic. You can even get people that use voice filters to sound like a grunt, and people would kick you out, funnily enough.
Jeez, guys, who's the guy with the grunt filter?
I'm gonna own your nipple, dudes!
Let's boot him.
Hey, no, wait!
And not only that, but using the thing that really changed the internet and gaming for the better was the addition of friends on Xbox, so you could always hook up with people online and get them to play really fun custom games with you, and consoles were nearly at their peak. However, the golden age of the internet and consoles would be in 2007. You got the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. In games you got Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Halo 3, Gears of War, God of War 2, Mass Effect, Crysis, Assassin's Creed, The Witcher, and oh my god, Minecraft, Terraria, and other games, as well as the big library of small little indie games you could play with your friends like Doritos Crash Course. Not to mention back then, when you could actually have people over your house willing to play split screen, when games focused on that. Yeah, remember those days? This was truly the golden age of gaming, not to mention the internet. From all these random, funny, and toxic moments in Call of Duty and trash talking to creative shows like Red vs. Blue.
Ready? Let's go.
There is no way I'm going through that thing.
Tucker, we don't have time for this. Why would they give us a teleporter if it doesn't work?
I don't know. Why would they give us a tank that no one can drive?
We already tested the teleporter, remember?
And other funny machinimas from the Halo community.
Hello, and welcome to Grunt in the Box. Can I take your order?
Yeah, let me see here. I'm in a burger mood. Can I get 2 brew burgers, please?
Is that for here or to go?
Well,
And all these other YouTube channels like Rooster Teeth creating great custom games and showing them off on YouTube for other people to play and create themselves. People would be on the Xbox 360 every day. And not to mention, midnight launches were a big thing and people could really get hyped for them in person. Remember those days as well? Not only that, but back in the day, people on Xbox 360 wouldn't just play Halo. No. You made friends in virtually every lobby you joined, and the next minute you know, you could be playing Gears of War Horde mode or PvP with your friends, or an invite from your friends to join up in a Call of Duty lobby. Gaming will truly never be the same again, to be honest. Alright, so we can't forget to mention one of the things that changed the internet forever, in a lot of bad ways and some good ways. The iPhone. Yes, this portable device, this portable little shit arrived on the scene as consoles were taking over the gaming market. And gaming was also slowly moving over to phones thanks to that as well. And more iPhones as we know it will be coming out over the years to compete in the phone market. Each phone being drastically different from the last. iPhones would also make music more accessible to listen to even listening to it on the go, and basically replace MP3 players and even iPods entirely. And we're also starting to move people away from console gaming at the time, which was honestly the biggest downside with this new piece of technology. And we also can't forget what was happening on the internet, social media wise and forum wise. Back then, the internet in that regard was so much more open-ended. The internet was going through a lot of growing pains at the time. Things were not so well established as they are now. It felt like the Wild West for a big open sandbox of the internet age. Whereas now, there are so many websites people visit and whatnot, and most of the ones that existed before have been taken down or are pretty much dead. Basically, nowadays the internet is very restrictive on engaging websites. For example, nowadays, if you want to use a forum on the internet, the vast majority of internet users will be using Reddit, where everybody's profile looks the damn same, and there are not avatars, and every subreddit has the same format, and with replies to threads you just scroll down until you get motion sickness. Everything is so uniform and calculated. Even the demographic itself and user base seems to have turned into a massive echo chamber. Compare that to the wide variety of options you had back in the more golden years of the internet. For example, if you were a person who was into video games a lot, and you had countless active forums and communities and clans you could easily be a part of. Just to name a few: GameFAQs, IGN, Bungie.net, and NeoSeeker. The point is, most of these forums allow for so much more customization. You could have custom avatars, custom signatures, and all sorts of flavor to make yourself stand out from other people. Unique and expressive as well. I know these sort of things still exist today, but the thing is though, Reddit has basically taken over all of them in popularity, and everyone's flocking to them rather than the other websites you find today. They're being overlooked because of Reddit. It's rare to find a unique forum site that is very active in today's age of the internet. Because Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, and social media as a whole has taken over in popularity and are leaving the more unique sites to turn to dust. I don't like how social media nowadays just consists of a whole bunch of echo chambers and places to flex on people with your damn cat or dog. I miss the freedom I had on those more creative sites back in the day. While there were social media sites back then like Facebook, MySpace, and Dig, none of them were as intrusive as the modern day Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. These days, social media platforms are very much designed around the idea to just keep people's eyes glued on their devices to see if they get the most likes on a post or comments, and it's also just flooded with whatever gets the most amount of attention in your damn feed. Well, something as well I'll briefly talk about is the modern day YouTube compared to back then. Let's face it, nowadays YouTube is more or less business oriented rather than a site people go for creativity and innovation. Channels just want to focus on one specific topic, regardless of its quality or if it's been done to death, or not just so they can be in the mainstream and get views. Watch time and ad revenue for a sweet page, and all they want to do is just get in the mainstream, get views, and get watch time and ad revenue for a sweet paycheck at the end of the day. Back then, this was the exact opposite, of course, as you might expect. As ad revenue was still just an experimentation and not accessible to the vast majority of people back then. And back then people, while the resolution and recording quality of videos wasn't perfect back then people made videos because they generally cared and were really passionate about what they put out for people to watch, and people didn't really give a flying fuck about ad revenue or clickbait or forcing themselves to upload quantity over quality by uploading on a daily basis for views and ad revenue. Now, to be honest, I'm not entirely against the idea of ad revenue, but it is fairly interesting to see YouTube as a shell of its former self, of what happens when you introduce a monetary benefit to the idea of uploading content. I could go on, but I already have a video of that myself that you could check out. But you get the point that YouTube is just not YouTube anymore. It's far from it. YouTube is a different platform nowadays compared to back then. So anyways, people watching, what do you think of 30 years of the internet? What was your golden age of the internet? Tell us in the comments below. Was it different or was it the same? I would love to hear your thoughts. The internet, as bad as it may be nowadays, and as boring as it may be nowadays, we can't forget the glory days happened, and changed the world forever as we know it. Whether that would be through politics, gaming, socialization, forums, videos, content, etc., the internet will definitely be going down in history as such a memorable cultural phenomenon. We cannot forget all the great times we had, especially in gaming.